In this segment, we're going to talk about the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, more commonly known as the HR diagram. The HR diagram is a plot of intrinsic brightness versus surface temperature. So what do we mean by intrinsic brightness? Intrinsic brightness, what we mean is luminosity. Luminosity is the power output at the surface of the star, typically given in units of watts. A watt is the amount of energy that is being emitted per unit time. And typical units here are going to be in joules per second. So what we have is we have a star, and what we want to know is what is the luminosity at the surface of the star, or basically what is the power output at the surface of the star, or how much energy is being emitted at the surface of the star per unit time. And we want to compare this luminosity to the star's temperature at the surface of the star. So the HR diagram is a plot where we're comparing the luminosity of stars versus the surface temperatures of the stars. So let's go look at some stars. Let's look at this image from your textbook. Notice that we see different stars in this image. We see stars that are red and appear very bright, and we see red stars that appear dim. We also see blue stars that appear very bright, and we also see blue stars that appear very dim. So what we want to do is we want to take a look at the surface temperature versus the luminosity, or the power output at the surface of the star. And what we want to do is we want to compare these luminosities to that of the luminosity of the sun. So if I were to draw the sun here, and we want to know what is the luminosity of the sun at its surface. We don't really know it, we don't really care. Let's just say the luminosity of the sun is 1. What we really care is how bright are these other stars, such as this one right here. How bright is that star compared to the brightness of the sun at its surface? So we want to know the luminosity of the blue star. Let's just say the luminosity of the blue star is 10 times the luminosity of the sun. If we divide both sides of the equation by the luminosity of the sun, then what we end up with is the luminosity of the star divided by the luminosity of the sun is equal to 10, because the letters cancel out on the right-hand side. So we rank how bright the stars are compared to how bright the sun is, and we put that on the HR diagram. So now let's draw the HR diagram. So in the HR diagram, we are comparing the luminosity of the star relative to that of the sun, and we are comparing the surface temperatures of the star. So this diagram has a plot of all different kinds of stars on it. So we want to compare the luminosity of the star, or how bright is that star at its surface compared to the luminosity of the sun. So some stars are brighter than other stars, and so the bright ones are going to be up at the top of the HR diagram. Some stars are dim, and they're going to appear at the bottom of the diagram. Now let's look at the horizontal axis. Temperature at the surface of the star is going to increase to the left. So hot stars are going to be on the left side of the diagram, and cold stars are going to be on the right side of the diagram. So what we do is we take a snapshot in time, like this photograph right here, and we take a look at all the surfaces of the stars. We want to compare their luminosities, or their power outputs at their surfaces, compared to their temperatures. So let's take a look at this bright blue star. This blue star, blue is a hot color, and it's bright. So this star would appear up here in the bright hot corner. Let's look at another star. Let's look at a small, a dim blue star. Here's a dim blue star. Where would that dim blue star fit on the HR diagram? It's dim and it's blue, or a hot color, so that would be down here. Let's go look at some of the red stars. So what we saw in our previous image, is we saw this bright red star. And so we're to put that bright red star, red is a cold color, so that object would appear in the upper right corner. Let's go look at our dim red star. The dim red star would appear down in the bottom right corner. So we have four general corners of the HR diagram. Hot, bright stars are in the upper left. Hot, dim stars are in the bottom left. Cold, bright stars are in the upper right. And cold, dim stars are in the bottom left. So if we were to put dots for all of where we see stars, and we put them all on the HR diagram, and everywhere you see a dot is a star in this previous image. So we're taking all these stars and we're putting them on the diagram. They just don't fit everywhere on the diagram. They fit in very distinct areas. And we would get a diagram that looks something like this. So stars that appear up here are going to be reddish colored stars and bright, and those that appear down in the bottom right would appear red, but they'll be dim, and those that are in the bottom left are going to be dim but hot, and those that are in the upper left are going to be bright stars and hot stars. This is your general HR diagram.